Hello, welcome to Rubbing Elbows. I am Karin Wolok, and this is my co-host, who also happens to be my brother.
Hey, Yariv Wolok. Happy to do another one. Welcome for this is episode 3 at this point.
This is episode 3. Yes.
Ooh, the lucky 3. I'm so lucky.
Yeah.
Yes. So today we have a special guest who is a good friend of mine, and we've known each other for a very long time, actually. A lot of interesting career transitions, I think. But this is multimedia personality, Mina SayWhat.
Hi, that's me.
In case people didn't know.
Before the podcast, we're like, well, what do we call you, right? And then it's like, do you do radio, TV, podcasting? I'm like, now they just say multimedia because it becomes like such a long subtitle. So that's what I am apparently now.
And you do it all. And I mean, that makes sense. Honestly, I kind of like the multimedia. That's why I was like, ooh, I like the multimedia thing. Instead of like breaking it all down and making it complicated, we just bundle it all into one.
Yeah.
I feel like she does all the things.
Well, you have to these days. You know, back in the day, it used to be like you did one thing. And now you have to literally do like 5 different things, and you have to be on every social media site, and you have to be TikToking and Instagramming and tweeting your thoughts and live streaming. And it's like, you have to be everywhere, literally. So
you're exhausting me saying
it's very challenging these days. So they say multimedia, whatever that means.
Wow. Do you run all that stuff yourself? Everything is all your own? Voices, everything?
I do. I mean, there's people that have helped me and they come in and out. And obviously for the 2 radio stations that I work for, there's people that do stuff there because that's the job. I mean, someone has a job and there's a hierarchy there, and there's budgets and stuff like that. But like for my digital stuff, I do that all on my own. And it used to never be a job, but now like I'll do an interview for Sirius XM, and they'll edit it and make sure it plays, and they'll put it up on demand and do all that. But then I have to go and like take little clips and edit them down and upload them to my social media, and then do it 3 times on all the platforms. And, so it's like people do the job, but then I have to finish the job, because it's a lot, it's like a cycle. I always say, it's like you produce the content, you air the content, and that used to be it. But now there's this whole other side of the cycle where it's like, you got to recycle the content, put it up when it's someone's birthday, try to get extra clicks. You got to upload it. You got to get the sound bite, the video bite, the most entertaining, funny thing, so you can get the retweet. It's like, and then it's like you post the content, then you have to share it to your stories and fleet it. And then it's like, it's like there's not enough bodies to do all of that. So I do a lot of that myself.
How do you stay on top of all that stuff? Like someone's birthday, you just like are like, okay, this is someone you have like.
I call this the Bible. I literally have it on hand because I write everything down.
Very organized.
So
you have categorized by date.
And yes, and there's something about writing it down. I have one on my phone as well, but the one on my phone is more so for like events. Like that Bible is more for like the minutia of edit this video, upload that video, send this email, follow up on that. Because if I don't write it down, I'll forget. And there's something about like writing it down and crossing it out that makes me feel like I'm a little neurotic. It makes me feel like I'm getting somewhere in life because I'm crossing out stuff in my Bible. And I'm it's good. Call the dentist. Check, did that. Like, get your eyebrows done. Check, did that. So it just makes me feel like I'm getting ahead in life, because sometimes I just feel very stagnant. Ironically, I do so much, but I feel stagnant a lot.
I totally get that. I feel like it's like the difference between like having old school phones where you used to be able to slam the phone, and now like you just have to push a button. It's kind of like a similar comparison, like clicking something off of your to-do list versus scratching it off. You're like, it's done.
Right.
But she checks it. She doesn't cross it.
Sometimes I cross. I normally check though, because I want to go back and look at all I've done. And if I cross, I can't see it anymore.
Got it.
Makes sense. There is actually statistics behind that. I think it's, if you write something down on paper, I think it's about 83 or 87% chance that you actually get it done. So it's one of those things that, like, I tell my sister this, like, you think about it, it's like in the real world, if you write it down on paper, like, it exists now, right? And it's a little different in a phone, but like once you put it down on paper, there's like some kind of weird, juju magic, that you're not really aware of, that like you put it down on paper and it just becomes reality in like a weird way, like forces you to like follow up with it, right? Like,
Yariv, how did you not tell me this before?
I have told you that before.
Oh,
you are listening.
My brother is like secretly my coach and like my whatever.
It's funny you say that, because when I do my taxes every year, I itemize. So it forces me to go back into my Bible from last year. So that's literally a cabinet behind me. Mm-hmm. There's literally like Bibles going back for like 10 years,
Oh, cool.
like if I died and you want to know what I did, 10 years ago, you can go in there and look. So when I do my taxes, it forces me to go into last year's Bible. And then I start seeing the things that have carried over, the things that I haven't done, my long-term goals versus my short-term goals. And it's crazy. Like, some things are there. Like I'm still trying to save $20,000. That's still there. Like, it's carried over.
I was saying, you just roll it into the next Bible. Yeah.
It rolls over year to year.
Hey, but you roll it over. That's what's key, right? You don't give up on that.
Right.
On that goal.
But sometimes I forget to roll certain things over. So I go back into my Bible from last year and I'm like, oh, I remember I wanted to get my dad's, tombstone updated. Now let's put that on today's list. Yeah. So it helps me even keep track, and it helps me go back and, like, to your point, not lose sight of the things that I wanted to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I do that too. I make lists also. It's key.
I make lists, but sometimes I write them down, sometimes I don't. But this has definitely changed it. Now I'm gonna have to write them down every day. I guess I didn't get that point the first time.
Yeah. It's like a vision board. You know how they say once you write it down and you see it, you can envision it. I feel like it's very similar to that.
Yeah, it's the power of the mind, right? And that's, if you focus on something every day, right? Because that's how you make like real things. Like you're talking about your job, right? You do it every day, right? You're not like once in a while you do a thing here or there. It's what you do consistently, right? So if you see this thing consistently, your mind will focus on it, and then you'll do the little things behind it to make it happen. Even if you don't really realize, if it's like on your mind all the time, you'll eventually get that done. As opposed to if it's not there, you don't see it, right? Your motivation for that thing will go away. Right. That's like really the secret behind it. Right. I remember that whole movie, The Secret, years ago. That's really what book. It is. That's really what it is. Right. It's the power of the human brain and what it can do when it's focuses on the same thing over and over and over again. Eventually you will achieve your goal, or at least there's a high likelihood you will.
It's crazy, but I think it's very, very real.
No, it definitely is crazy. It's crazy that I carry things over year to year. That is crazy. Some people don't remember what they did yesterday. I'm carrying things over year to year. It's definitely crazy. But like, if you want to achieve certain things, you just have to do whatever you works for you to make sure that you stay on task.
Yeah,
for sure. And I guess maybe we'll start like in the beginning. And I did a little bit of research on you like before. I'm nothing too serious.
It's funny because my brother did some research, and I would bet that he knows more about you now than I do, even though we've solidly known each other for 10 years. Well, I'm just saying, here's the thing. Mina and I have known each other for 10 years, right? Or something, maybe more. I have no idea.
It's been definitely like at least 10 years. Yeah.
Before you even got involved in the Philly scene, because I think we both came back to Philly from New York but it was a long time ago. And like, I followed her career progression, but there could be things that I might have missed, just like she might have missed my career too, And I think that like sometimes when you go back and like really do the deep research, you're like, oh, I saw this and I saw this, and, so I don't know, but yeah, let's start from the beginning.
I think in general, I don't talk about my job. Like I don't, like if I go out with friends, I never talk about my job ever. Like I'll go out with Karin and like, I'll never, ever talk about what's going on with my job or like, I never will. It's just not who I am.
I'm probably more focused on like the social element. I think that probably shows who you are, right? You like to talk about like people and like what you're doing in front of you, right?
Yeah.
Not so much like what you're doing every day.
Right.
But yeah, no, I just wanted to go back. Like, so you started Syracuse, right? University, I
Yeah.
believe, full ride scholarship, from what I
Yeah.
understand.
Academic.
Yeah. So,
See, now I didn't know that about
well,
Mina, and that is
But that I was a
amazing.
nerd.
well, I was
I
gonna
knew
say.
you were a nerd.
I was gonna say it's kind of obvious from the book, right? Because you said a lot of people are like, oh, they don't like do this. They're like, oh, how do you do this? And it's like it shows, right? If you have a book and you have a backlog and you put it in a cabinet, that's not. I don't want to say it's
that
not.
I'm a nerd.
I mean, kind of, right? You're like nerdy about being successful, right? So how do you get a full ride scholarship? I mean, it shows you were pretty thorough at a young age. Did you know that this was what you wanted to do? I guess.
I still don't know if this is what I want to do.
That's a conversation I definitely want to get into later.
No, I was joking. But at 18, I didn't think it was a career. It was fun. I was good at it. It was fun. I was good at it. I had all these alumni telling me I was a natural. So it's like, okay, I don't think I was ever a natural at the job of radio. I was a natural at being around people and talking to people and connecting with people. I mean, even when I was in high school, I had friends. I was friends with everyone. I spoke to everyone. I played 3 sports. I was smart. I was a vice president of student council. I didn't feel like I was a nerd. Like typically, stereotypically, like if you're smart, you're a nerd. Like, no, I dated.
She was cute.
She
was cute.
My
That's all the
boyfriend
difference.
played on the football team. Like, I didn't consider myself like a cool, popular girl, but I knew everyone in school. I got along with people in school. I had one fight. That's it. But it's like, I was cool with people. So I'm just a people person in general. So I think like the radio thing just came very easy to me because it's an extension of talking to people. Now, sometimes you have to learn the skill because if you're talking into a mic, you have to pretend there's someone on the other side. Sometimes at first you feel like you're talking to yourself and you feel crazy. But it's like, I think that was the basis of it. So it was fun. I was good at it. I stumbled on it. People said I was a natural. So I just kept going. I think I was always ambitious and driven. And I think like sports really put that in me. So I played 3 sports. So it wasn't like I played one sport and took a break. It was like I played a sport, you transition to the next one, you transition to the next one. So it's like I always had that like go, go, go kind of attitude. And it was just, I transitioned it from sports because after high school, I wasn't playing anything. I mean, I'm short. I'm 5'2". I'm not playing on the volleyball team or the basketball team. And then I played softball, and I technically probably could have been on the softball team, but that was the sport that I was the weakest at. So I'm not going to play for softball for Syracuse. I was like the worst sport. I mean, I was kind of good at it, but it was my weakest sport out of the 3 that I played. So it's like, I just put that energy, I guess, into my radio career. And it kind of just happened. I just kept doing it year after year, and then started writing stuff down in my book and scratching things off. And then next thing I know, I have my real first job, and then my second job. And then
tell us about your real first job. I want to know about that.
I worked for free.
So it
sounds like a real job. Yeah.
That sounds like a real first job.
Yeah.
So I worked for free forever. I feel like I worked at the school radio station for free. I mean, I literally lived there, and I ended up being the program director, and I was on air. So, and I did, a couple of internships. I worked at a real radio station, and, I just didn't get paid for it until I graduated. And my first paying job, which is what I consider the real job, but I had already had like 3 jobs before that, was at Sirius XM, which is where I am now. So it's funny, I left there and then came back. So I kind of feel like it's home there,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious about, because actually today I hosted a live conference for my like regular job in tech. I work in software doing marketing. I market software to software developers. So we had a very, very technical conference. And one of my colleagues was telling me how weird it is to talk into nothing when there's no audience, right? And you were talking earlier about being in radio and just talking to a microphone, because like you could be great at talking to people, but talking to a device that no one's looking at you on the other side, that feels a little bit awkward. And I'm curious about what you did to
you just keep doing it. You just keep doing it. I mean, nothing is like there's no tricks to it. You know, you put in the work and you do it, and it feels awkward and you push through the awkwardness. And then eventually you don't feel awkward anymore and it feels okay. I mean, I could literally talk to a room with no one in it. I could talk into
master that.
Right, like a computer. I mean, I do it every night. Good. You know, I talk to myself every night in the shower. And or I could talk into a device and look at a TV prompter. I could talk in a room with 20,000 people. I mean, you know, I've mastered those things by just doing them. It's not like a secret. Not one is not much harder than the other one. They're all different. So it's just a different skill that you use for each one. And you just do it until you don't feel uncomfortable anymore.
Do you miss like the days of, I guess, more radio focused, or do you prefer it kind of now, or is it like just is what it is? Because I know now, like you said, it's evolved to a point where it's like multimedia. Right. So it's not just like, I know you started, I don't know if you started, but you were at Power 99, right? Doing the morning show. And that's probably with more of like a single crew and like more daily schedule. Right now it's like 24/7 in your life. Would you say you prefer one or the other? Or is it just kind of, you just evolve at the time?
See, I'm a millennial, so I don't remember when radio was never visual ever. Like
true.
when I was in college, we had Facebook. And at that point, Facebook was just for college students. Now it's for everyone. But now, obviously, we didn't use Facebook the way it's used now. But I don't remember radio I'm too young to remember when radio was just like no one knew what you look like. You could not Google the person. Like I didn't grow up in that era of radio. So when I speak to like my mentors and older people, they do miss it. They think it's a lot now. They think that sometimes it's not even about radio anymore. It's about all this other stuff. But yeah, I mean, I didn't grow up in that era, so I don't know what it's like. But to be honest, I didn't get into radio for it to be a visual thing. I kind of liked that people didn't know what I looked like. When I was in college, so I had a television and radio major. And I always struggled with the television part more so than the radio part, because I feel like the radio stuff came very natural to me and the television stuff not so much, because I didn't even know how to really do my makeup back then. Like I didn't even know how to do like a straight liner, believe it or not. And it's crazy because now the girls because of TikTok and how visual the world is, the girls are 15 and they know how to beat a whole face. And I'm like, I couldn't even do liner when I was 18 years old in college. Like
you would like stretch your eye.
Right. Like I still stretch my eye. Like they're like putting lashes on and contouring and like you have to highlight here. And I'm like, you're 15. How do you know this? I didn't learn it until I was like 36. No, I'm not that old. I'm not even 36 yet. I didn't learn it until I was 26. Like, and it's like, I just struggled with the visual aspect of it. I liked sweat. I like wearing sweats and a t-shirt. You know, I was an athlete, so I had to kind of like grow into the wearing a dress and heels. I mean, you know, I used to save up my money to buy Jordans. I didn't, you know, like I never was a girl was like, oh, let me buy my heels. You know, like I didn't care. So it was definitely like the visual aspect of it. I really struggled with. Because I think things are changing now, but you know, stereotypically on TV, girls have to look a certain way. So especially being in Syracuse and the classes I was in, there was not a lot of diversity. So my hair's curly. Like all the girls, their hair's straight. So it's like I struggled with like, how do I look like the girl that's supposed to be on TV? I don't know how to do makeup. I like sweats and t-shirts. My hair is curly. It's out here. You know, like I didn't even know how to blow dry my hair. Like now they have all these cool gadgets and the Revlon brush thing, you know, the brush, it's like a brush hair dryer. They make it so easy. Like all I had was a flat iron and it took forever to
or
flat
using the
iron my
real
hair.
iron. Do you ever use the real iron?
I have.
Me too.
You have
Back
curly
in
hair.
field school.
You have curly hair problems too, girls. So it's
Yeah,
like
putting it on the ironing board and literally
but then you
ironing
can
it.
never get the roots. The roots
No.
were always curly.
Because you
So
can't bring a hot iron that close to your head.
So it's like I struggled with that so much in college, and it's something that I had to build more confidence in. And so the television part came later on in my career. But everything is about like steps and just being comfortable and being able to meet the moment that you're in. So at that time, I wasn't ready to meet that visual moment. So I went into the audio aspect, which was still a little visual, but at least I could prepare for it, right? I could, you know, look nice when we had to take pictures or do an interview. But when you're on TV, you have to look a certain way all the time. And I struggled with it. And I think I'm a little bit better with it now. But at 18 years old is definitely not something that came easy to me. And it's something that I had to grow into. And that's why I went more like the radio aspect.
When do you think you were able to kind of let go of that, right? Because you obviously got really comfortable beyond where you were. Like, did you find a point where you're like, oh, well, let me just embrace who I naturally am? Because I feel like it's a lot of what it is. It's like being very, very comfortable in your own skin and kind of owning it. And it's really difficult to do that at 18, regardless who you are. You're always extremely self-conscious. So like,
Yeah.
what do you think happened that kind of pushed you over the edge to be like, no, like I am the brand. I can be whatever I want, kind of, and just own it. Like, did that happen to you at some point?
I don't know when it happened, but I think I just picked up like more confidence, and the confidence came when I knew that I can contribute to whatever was going on.
Yeah.
So whether it be a discussion on TV or radio, when I started feeling like I could very confidently contribute to the conversation, that's when I feel like the other things kind of came in. So the confidence has to come from inside, and then it'll work. Right. It's so cliche, but it's so this is a Revlon commercial.
But this is true.
But it's like the confidence has to be in there, and then it'll work its way on the outside. So I think when I gained that confidence where I could go in a room and deliver and you know, give information or contribute to a conversation and be intelligent and funny and likable and, you know, full of personality. I mean, when I could do that, then I feel like it was easier for me to work on the external things that I struggled with. And but regardless of what I looked like, I knew that when I opened my mouth, it was gonna matter.
That's cool.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's funny. I tell Karin all the time that it starts inside. Like I literally say that to her all the time. Like,
what the hell? You're like her life coach.
You have no idea, Mina. He like legitimately
is he your younger brother?
Coach. I am younger.
Oh my God.
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, I got this way because of being a screw up. Like, to be honest with you, like it didn't happen because I'm like, oh, I was perfect and like I feel confident. I was like, not.
I was actually more of the perfect one.
Yeah, I was extremely shy, and then I was lead singer of a band. That's what helped me get over being shy. Is like I had to stand on stage and sing and stuff like that, and kind of get over that. But everything I say is stuff that I do myself, right? Like I realized that. Like it's because I was really shy. She was super outgoing. So like even like now today, because of such a screw up, you know, I get screw up, but you know, like I struggle with things like growing up that I realized how much how much my internal dialogue had to do with the world outside of me. Like how I felt inside, I would project that outwardly and literally it would change the results of what was going on around me. It sounds like that's really similar to what you went through, right?
Yeah.
You're obviously confident, but you know.
Well, I mean, she'd have to have like, you know, I'm assessing you now, Mina. Like she'd have to have some kind of like internal dialogue with herself being like, I am capable of doing this. When I open my mouth, it matters. And that brings the presence for the room where she was able to let all the other things go.
Yeah.
You know?
And then I also think it's like upbringing too. Like, I struggled with these things because how I was brought up. Like I couldn't even get fake nails until I'll never forget in 7th grade we were doing our dance, and I had to beg my mother to give me these, like beg her. Like she would not let me paint my nails. She would not let me do
In seventh
acrylic.
grade.
In 7th grade, right?
There's girls painting their nails at 5 years old.
Hello, I go to the nail salon, and I'm like, she's 6 months. What do you mean, give her a French tip? So it's like at 7th grade, and my mother was always like that. And my mother's like very like natural, and that's my mom. So
That's awesome.
even like my hair, like she wouldn't let me put gel in my hair. Like I could only do like leave-in conditioner or like leave-in spray and a little bit of mousse, like my mother was very strict about stuff like that. And she because she was like, why do you want to look older? Look your age. Because these things make you look older. You have no business being older than what you are. You're a little girl, so you're gonna look like a little girl. And I was like, but mom, my friends, I don't care. They're not my kids. You're my kid. Fine. So it's like my mother's like that. And it's so funny. I hated it. But I think when I become a mom, I'm going to be the same exact way. Like, I mean, I'm going to at least let my kid have gel, because now like we always joke in all the kid pictures, I look crazy. I was like, mom, my hair is out here. Like, why didn't you let me use gel? She's like, you're a kid. I'm like, mom, I look like a chia pet in all my kid pictures. Like, why did you let me use gel? And like now, like it's a joke. Like, and like I had a Michael Jackson afro. I'm not even joking with you. I literally had a Michael Jackson afro. Like it was out here. And I'm like, you let me walk around like this as a girl? It was just like, now we joke about it, but
I wonder if that's also kind of good for you though, to like be able to embrace yourself a little bit more. Like you kind of have to like be in your own skin from a young kid, like all with your big afro, like you have to be yourself.
You know what? It's funny you say that. That definitely probably is the case. Like I never relied on my looks. I always relied on like my personality, or I would absolutely say that. I've always been personality driven. So and then I also think people think I look like I'm 21 or 22. I think because of that is because I didn't start putting makeup on when I was 5. Because this stuff definitely ages you, so it's like I think that's why I kind of look a little youthful as well, because I didn't clog my pores up and do all these things that these young girls are doing. I mean, I didn't struggle with acne until I was like 25, 26, when I was
which is like that doesn't even make any sense.
Right. Like I washed my face and I never put anything on it. I would wash my face and that was it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I might take this on a little bit of a tangent, this conversation, if that's okay with you guys. So I want to talk a little bit about your career as your career is like, pretty established now. And like you were actually, let me backtrack that a little bit. You were mentioning mentors earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have mentors? Like, did they change around? Like, did your mentors change and shift as you started to develop through your career? Or did you have a lot of like consistency with your mentorship? Like, who are these people? Can we talk about
I kind of feel like my mentors are like building blocks. Like I just keep building a tower of mentors. And like, I still go back to the first guy that gave me my job at SiriusXM. Or like, I'll never forget my professor, Dr. Reuben Wright at Syracuse University. Like I still go to Syracuse every year and see Dr. Wright. And then he always yells major market. He's like very animated. He's a radio guy. He's like an old school radio guy. He's like major market. So it's like, I've been hearing major market since I was like in college. It's him just saying major market. Like you're major market, you're a big deal. Like you're ready for the big show kind of, so that's his thing. Like you're a major market. So, yeah, I mean, I still talk to all my mentors. I don't talk to them every day. I talk to some more than others, but I always circle back to them. And it's crazy how like people that I met that are my mentors still to this day, sometimes I met them and when I met them, I didn't even think they were going to be a mentor. Like we just met, we stayed in touch, and it's a relationship that grew into that. So I have a lot. I can't even give you a number. Like I have so many of them. And
I mean, I get that. It's like sometimes, there's different kinds of people that you learn different things from too. So it doesn't even have to be like you can learn a little bit of things from a lot of different people.
Yeah, and they all have different skill sets. So like depending on what I'm going through, I'll reach out to one versus the other. They're in different, one's did pop radio, the other one did urban radio, the other one TV, like they all have different areas of expertise. So it's like depending on what I'm trying to do or what I'm struggling with, I'll talk to them about it. So I'm very big on mentors. I know like mentors sounds like really like, nerdy or whatever, but
everything you're saying sounds nerdy from the beginning of the show.
But it's like it's really like networking, right? So isn't that the goal of networking? Like you want to be so close to someone that they have a responsibility over your career. Isn't that what you want? Like that's really like the highest. I think the highest form of networking is someone becoming your mentor, or your boss.
I'm wondering how much.
That's why we do it.
Yeah.
I was wondering, and this is something I've kind of talked to a lot of people in like even my real job and whatnot, and I have my own personal answer for this. But you obviously met a lot of people. How did you know who to listen to? Like, how did you know that people had their best interest in there rather than not? And I'm not saying because some people it's not that they don't even have their best interest in mind, but some people just speak from a place of insecurity and they don't even really notice. Like they project fears on you and stuff like that. How do you think you kind of picked your mentors throughout time?
That's a really good question.
That is a good question.
It's probably more instinctual than anything. That's why.
How do I know who to listen to? You know what? I don't know who to listen to, but I talk to so many people. If I keep hearing the same answer, then I know that that's the right answer. You know how many times I wanted to quit my job? And like 2 different people were like, are you dumb? You can't quit your job. I'm like, why? Fuck this job. I don't know if we can curse.
Yeah.
Yes, you can curse.
But, like I literally got talked off the ledge by 2 different people. So sometimes, and I don't do it like intentionally, like, oh, this person might be giving me bad advice. Let me go speak to this other person. It's just a matter of, you have a network of people when you're trying to figure it out or going through it, you speak to them. And sometimes they have the same answers. Sometimes they attack the problem from different angles. And, you might choose to do one thing, but not the other. And, you just kind of survey the room. And it's like literally like you're bored. Like I went to my board and I said, board, what do you think I should do with my company? And every board member has a different angle. And then as the CEO of my own company, I decided which board member I agree with or if I'm really savvy enough, maybe I don't agree with the board members, but if I see 2 or 3 board members are saying the same thing, maybe I need to be smart enough to step back and be like, okay, maybe I have the wrong idea. So and it's like, so it's not, I never felt like one of my mentors was giving me bad advice, like on purpose, but you're absolutely right. Everybody's path has been different and maybe they're not meant to achieve the things that I've achieved or, maybe my path is going to be different than what theirs are. I remember one person telling me I would never be able to start my career in New York. I don't think he meant that as like, you suck.
Right. But New York is a competitive market.
But New York's the number 1 market. And traditionally in radio, you've had to work your way up because you had to gain the skills and, there's a reason why you got to start at a smaller market because you have to gain the skills to get to the larger market. You can't be in a large market and not know what you're doing. Sometimes it happens, but the proof is in the pudding. If you get somewhere where you're not ready to be and you don't step up to the occasion, the cracks are going to show, and it's going to be very clear that you're not in the position that you're in is not for you, or you're not ready for this moment. So you're going to get booted out. So it's like once you get to the highest level, you don't want to get booted out. It's so hard to get back in. When you get there, you want to be ready for the moment. So it's like that's why they have these things where you have to start at the smaller market and hone your skills and work all your way up. You work your way up. But I had an advantage where I started when I was 18. I was, doing college radio at a high level. I was using the same equipment everyone in the industry is using. I was working on my craft in school, and I did that for 4 years. So it's almost like when I got out into the work world, I was like 4 years ahead of everyone else. So, and I had 2 internships, and I had a radio job. So it's like I had all that experience. So that didn't necessarily apply to me because I did have, the experience to work in New York for the first time. But back to your point, I don't think he said that intentionally. In the moment, I was like, what? In the moment, you're kind of taken back, like, you're a hater, like that's what goes through your mind first. But later, now that I'm older, I get why.
Yeah.
But he didn't know what my path was. He didn't know
Right.
how good I was or how good I could be or how I could rise to any occasion that I'm put into. He didn't know that about me. So, you take it with a grain of salt and you shoot for the stars. And, if you miss, at least you're up there and not down,
It's definitely not intentional a lot of times with people too. And I really liked your answer. Actually, I thought that was awesome. Like you said, this is like my board members, right? Because it's like, you think of yourself as a brand, and then you can like use your whole team. What I usually tell people, because like I usually tell this to young people, like more than like, people in their 30s, right? Like I'm 34. But when you're like younger, you don't know who to listen to. You almost listen to everybody, right? You take everybody's advice at face value. And I usually just say, like, try to parse it out by like, what did they have? Like what is their career like? And if they're giving you advice, if they have the type of career you want, that might be the type of advice you really need to take. Right.
There's also traditional pathways versus non-traditional pathways.
Yeah.
So there's that too. Like it could be like, you could see somebody who's insanely successful in what they do, and they had like a very traditional pathway, and your path might be so different. I mean, I don't know. When I look at my path, like I went from entertainment to working with software engineers on all sides. Like I literally work only with Stanford software engineers. I used to work in rap music. Like,
remember I think you were at the MGK listening. Do you remember that?
Is that where we met at?
No, we already knew each other, but I remember, I remember we were MGK.
On the roof.
This is when MGK was rapping. Now he's a rocker, right? But when he was rapping, he had like a listening party and I knew no one there. And then you were like in the corner or something. And I remember like, I know her. You're like the only person I knew there.
Oh my God. Was that on the rooftop? Is that like what it was? I have some like memory of us on the rooftop somewhere in New York.
I don't think it was a rooftop. I think it was like indoors at like a barbecue place or something.
Oh.
You don't even remember that. I remember that you were the only person that I knew in the room.
Yeah.
And this is after we met.
So when you did break into the New York market, how did that happen? Like, what did you do? Is it like a standard, like I applied and I just, came knocking at the door, or was it like?
It's funny. So I said I was the program director at the college radio station. So Sirius XM had reached out to me because they had this program where they wanted like interns from like the top radio schools. So Syracuse was one school. I think Ithaca College was another one. And like, I think there were others as well. So because we're in New York, Syracuse is in upstate New York, I arranged, I don't remember how, but we somehow got like a bus to drive students down to New York City so they can like kind of have like a day at Sirius XM and see, their studios at the time, our studios are still like, next level. It's just beautiful in there. But at the time, it was the only studio I've ever seen that was like all glass doors, and it just looks so cool. So I was really more so like, I was a senior at that time. I wasn't looking for an internship, but because I was a program director and I'm kind of the one that like facilitated for this to happen, I was like, I'll just show up and go with them. So when I was there, they put us in like a boardroom, and then all these Syracuse alumni came into the room, and I didn't realize how many Syracuse alumni were working at SiriusXM. I really didn't realize how many Syracuse alumni we have in the business, period. Like, I didn't know how strong the network was. I had no idea.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, until I graduated.
Isn't New York like a big thing in general, like university school, like New York universities in general for broadcasting?
Maybe, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I just know, like, especially in the sports world, there's so many Syracuse grads. It's ridiculous. Like,
wow,
so ridiculous. Like Mike Tirico, and like I can go down the list of like broadcasters that are from Syracuse. So that went to Syracuse. So they like all these like alumni came out, and we hit it off. I wasn't there looking for an internship. We were just, they were asking questions. We were having conversations. We just hit it off. Like, I guess I was memorable.
And they're like, yeah, you know what? Why don't we just bring her on? We don't have a job.
No, wait. So it was that I literally didn't even like take anyone's number or email. I'm like, I wasn't like that at all. I went there. We had a good time, and they remember my name, and that was it. So then later, like months later, I meet someone. So at another alumni thing, because I was a program director, I meet another alumni that was not in that room that day. And then he was like, I'm so impressed with you. Send me your resume. I was like, oh, okay. So I sent him my resume, and then he forwarded it to someone else. And that person remembered me. He was like, wait, is this like a Spanish girl with curly hair? And then, I'm the only Spanish girl in the room all the time. It's like, right?
The hair comes back.
Is this like a
the hair comes back? The hair made a comeback. There you go.
He was like, is that a Spanish girl, like curly hair? She has a really big personality. He was like, yeah. And he was like, I remember her. So literally, like, I was just memorable. And then someone else forwarded my resume to him, and he remembered me, and they hired me.
Wow.
That's how that happened.
A cool story, actually. Yeah, because it's funny, like, goes back to like how you said you didn't really fit in, right? Or you felt like you didn't fit in, right?
Yeah,
you're like,
sure.
oh, I don't have the straight hair and the same look as everybody else. But it's almost like that's kind of what paid off at the end, is that you didn't fit.
Stood out.
You weren't like everybody else.
But
like
do you think it's
my
physical appearance, or is
no, just in general?
It's my personality. Yeah.
But it's also just in general you standing out. I think like you being different from the rest. Like that's kind of what makes a person memorable different. For the most part.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I think I have like I've always had like a little like kind of like smart mouth, and that comes through a lot. Yeah. And I think people remember me for that.
That's a good thing to remember.
For radio, it's probably really important, right? To be able to think quickly on your feet.
But for real life, not so much.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because Karin's friends with like a bunch of stand-up comics as well, right? And like a big thing in stand-up comedy is like a lot of these people had to, they got bullied or whatever. They had like social problems at some point, but they always had like got by on like their ability to like come back with like quick comments. Right. And like it doesn't work like for The Office, but it works for being on stage. Right. Yeah. And it's almost like your personality was kind of meant to be center of attention to some degree.
Yeah. And I always had a mouth. I always did. I mean, I used to get in trouble when I was, as long as I can't even like, as long as I remember, I used to always get in trouble. And like my mother used to smack me in the mouth because I used to talk back. And even in class, like, and then like, I always had a very raspy kind of like really, really deep voice. And I would get in trouble by the teachers. And I'm like, why are you yelling at me? Everyone's talking. And then they're like, I could only hear you. And I'm like, okay, that doesn't mean that I'm the only one that deserves to get in trouble. Like everyone's talking. So I think I've always kind of just had that. My mother says I'm like my grandmother, but I don't know. But I just, I always, and it's funny, I always had, so when I was younger, I would never say it, but I always thought things. And then sometimes I wouldn't say them. It's when I got a little bit older that I felt like more comfortable kind of like saying stuff. And then I got like a little diarrhea of the mouth. So then I had to learn, like, you can't say everything. Right. So then like, I've now learned how to dial it back, and I know when to say stuff and when to not.
Interesting.
But there's like a weird moment where I would just say anything that would come to my head, and I'm like, you cannot do that.
You know, I love that, right? I'm like, you should go back to that.
No, because sometimes
I know.
everything does not deserve to be said. You know,
Right.
Everything does not deserve to be in the world. Like all our thoughts are not nice thoughts, so everything doesn't need to be said. Like, you know. And sometimes you don't even mean to say something mean or bad, but people take it bad or mean, you know. Sometimes like people are very sensitive, and that's, you know, it's just being very I guess just very conscious that people are sensitive, so you can't say everything because it might hurt their feelings.
Yeah, but you're also right. You don't have to say everything.
Yeah.
You know, you could be more thoughtful about the words that come out of your mouth.
You know what, though? So many people tell me, like, you said exactly what I was thinking.
And see, that's what I mean. It's so great.
Yeah. I've gotten better, though. Everything, even if you were thinking it, doesn't mean that it needed to be said.
There's a cost. Well, no, I just would say there's a cost to being outspoken. You know, like it's great in one aspect, but it's like can be a downside in another. Like the thing I do, like in sports, like I cover the Flyers, and I tend to defend athletes a lot of times, and that's not a big thing in Philadelphia. Like you don't defend the athletes, you shit on them. But I'm like just different. I like believe in like a growth mindset. So when I see somebody struggle, I go, well, just give it time. You know, like most of these people are like prime, you know, type A personalities. Like they're going to work through it.
People hate that.
Oh, they despise it. So
I remember that blog post that you did.
Yeah, like I told my sister, I wrote an article like a few years back about positivity. Actually, the Eagles, after the Eagles won the Super Bowl, I was like pointing out how the Sixers and the Flyers, like they both went on 10-game win streaks because everybody was super positive. Everybody was like rah Philadelphia, and it affected everything. Like everything was going well. And I wrote an article about that, how positivity actually, you know, you can tell, like, you know, you can talk to plants and plants live through positivity. I never got so much negativity.
You did not say talk to plants and they grow in your article.
It's true, but I know.
These are people that threw stuff at Santa Claus. Like you can't tell them you talk to a plant and it grows.
But I do. That's the thing. Like I agree with you, but I get like I always get an attitude for that. But I refuse to honestly change. Like with me, it's like, okay, well, I'm the counter to, you know, the opposite. Like, do you ever kind of feel like maybe that's where it kind of came from to begin with, is like, you're like, no, this like needs to be said, you know, and then as you get older, you're right. You kind of like, well, I don't need to challenge everything.
Well, yeah. It does come from a very combative place, but it's because I think a lot. And I think that, you know, I always think about the other side, which is a good and a bad thing, but I can almost have like an argument with myself and go back and forth and argue both sides. But that's exhausting. Like sometimes you just want to be like, sure, that works, you know? Yeah, but it's funny that you say that because I'm like that too. Like I defended Ben Simmons forever, like years, until this past series where he literally killed us. He's one of the reasons why we're not playing the Bucks right now. Yeah. So it's like I have the same thing. Like I defended him a lot, but you know, everybody is motivated in different ways, and everyone's not motivated by positivity.
No.
Some people need to be motivated with tough love, or you really need to kind of give them like the real, you know, everybody. So, you know, with Ben Simmons, I just feel like the harsh criticism is more of a motivator to him, because when he doesn't have it, I feel like he slacks a lot, you know, just my personal opinion.
That tough love.
But I haven't been that. I haven't been critical of him to, you know, kind of like you, where I have defended him, but you can't defend him anymore.
Yeah.
It's past the point of defense at this point.
I think with his case, and not to go like fully on sports, but it's almost like he doesn't seem to want to accept his downside. Like he doesn't want to do anything about it. It seems like he's kind of like, no,
that's
just
a problem.
Like not what I do.
No. That's the thing. He has accepted it, right?
Yeah.
Because if he didn't accept it, he would work on it. Like, no, this is unacceptable.
Right, but
I'm
that's
gonna
kind of what I was
work
trying
on
to
it. He's
say. Yeah.
accepted to be subpar. And it's sad because I feel like I was part of the people who enabled him. And now we're seeing how much we've enabled him. I mean, for a long time, I was right on the Doc Rivers bandwagon where he was defending him. He was like, I don't understand how you guys don't see what he does on the other side of the court. So I got it, you know, but when you're talking about championships, right? He needs to be present, especially when your star player is hurt. So because he didn't step up to the plate, because we have enabled him and made him feel like it's okay for him not to shoot at all, it kind of kicks you in the ass at the end of the day, because you're thinking like, okay, we needed to be tougher on him. Doc needed to say, no, okay, we need to work on his shooting, because he didn't, and Ben never worked on it. And then it bit us in the ass in the end.
Yeah, she's almost saying like it might be better to knock somebody down a little bit, you know, to shake them up, to make them come back.
No, absolutely. And I think that's what I was trying to say is like he doesn't go like, oh, I need to push myself on the element of this game. He's kind of like, no, I don't shoot. Like that's not my game. And I think that's the opposite of a growth mindset. That's like, I am what I am. That's
limiting.
Like, yeah, limiting. Exactly. Yeah.
I love the growth mindset.
Limiting himself. And it's like, he's so talented, it's ridiculous. And his talent gets questioned constantly because he does limit himself and he gives people something negative to say about him. And I don't know why. I don't know why. I don't know who's in his ear. I don't know who's in his head. I definitely have contributed to the leave Ben alone conversation, but at this point, he can't be left alone. He's not going to be his best self doing what he's doing now.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Have you dealt with anything like that in your career personally, where you felt like you had like a shortcoming and that you're like, I need to do something about this in my career? Or do you feel like you never really hit that wall?
I always hit that wall. It happens every couple of years. I'm there now, you know. It's kind of like I want to be here, but there's barriers. So it's like, but I'm not Ben Simmons. I'm not saying, well, whatever, I'm going to just ignore the barriers and keep doing what I'm doing. It's more so like, what can I do to break these barriers or be better, you know, so that I don't have barriers. There's a reason why their barriers are there. Maybe I'm not good enough, or, you know, maybe I need to work harder, or, you know, maybe I need to network better. Or
there's always ways to improve. Always.
Yeah.
So when you
go ahead.
No, you go.
I was just going to say, so when I get there, you know, which happens every couple of months, every couple of years, I just kind of figure out a plan, you know, like, how can I break this barrier? How can I get around this barrier? Or maybe I need to focus my energy somewhere else and that'll come later. So that's, you know, it happens a lot. I think any athletes, we're all the same. I mean, people who are work-minded, it's the same thing in your head, you know, like you want to be good, you want to be the best, you want to be great. So it's like, you obviously will have shortcomings, whether for me, it's been like, how do I present myself? You know, just being confident in that, or, you know, a lot of things, you know, obviously where I'm from, you know, like I always felt like no one in this room is from where I'm from, you know? So it's like, it's always something where you're, you know, you might feel like, do I belong here? Or I'm the only different one here. And it's like, we're all, or you know, he's different. Ben Simmons is different than the other people on the court, you know, because of his background. So I think we all go through that, like not feeling like you fit the mold. And it's like, how do you break that, but still be yourself? You know, I mean, you don't say, well, whatever, I'm just going to focus on the things that I can do right. You know, you always want to add another skill, or, you know, work on something that, you know, you have a weakness in. So it's like, I had to learn how to put makeup on, you know, like, I'm just saying, like, you want to be on TV, you know, no one wants to see the bags under your eyes. So it's like understanding what your weaknesses are and just working at them. I think we all, if we're in like a kind of like a driven kind of space or driven work, you're always going to be looking, how can I get better? And if you're not, like, why are you there?
You probably won't be at the top if you are not. That's for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I wanted to kind of go back to something that you said earlier. You said long-term versus short-term goals. And I'm curious about what some of your like long-term goals are for yourself.
Well, save $20,000.
Got it. Check.
So career-wise, so I do music right now, and I have a digital sports show. But the reason why I have a digital sports show is because that's my first step of going into that arena, right? So I've always, throughout my radio career, talked about sports. I played sports, so it's kind of hard to like get away from that. And I've never worked for a sports outlet, but sports has always been a part of my job. I always reported on sports. I always gave my opinion on things on any platform that I've been on, because that's part of my personality, right? So when I was trying to figure out like, okay, I want to do music, which I'm still doing. Music is never going to go away, music, radio, but you want to build and do different things. When you've been doing something since you were 18, you kind of get a little bored. So and I don't want to say I'm bored with my job, but I just want to be challenged in different ways. Like I love my job.
Makes sense.
I love working at SiriusXM. You know, I enjoy the people that I work with. I love what I'm doing, but I want to grow. So it's like in that area, the opportunity for me to grow is very slim because I've worked at that for so long. I think the one thing in that area that I want to grow on is sometimes when I ask questions, I start with like, so, and it's a crutch for me. So that's literally the one thing that I'm working on right now, just not saying so. And it's like, that's the one thing, you know, sometimes I watch my interviews and I'm like, wow, that was really good. Or, you know, or, oh, I said so here. But it's like,
interesting.
I feel like I need a challenge, like another challenge. So that's why I started doing TV. And then when I started doing TV, the old stuff that plagued me when I was in college kind of came back. The whole, like, I need to look a certain way. And like, I like to eat. And like, I just hated like, oh, I need to eat a salad because I have to watch my calories because I don't want to gain 5 pounds because 5 pounds on TV is like 20 pounds. I don't understand. Like, that life is so challenging for me because my weight goes up and down naturally all the time, you know, and I've always been that way. And I like to eat whatever I want. And then if I see myself getting chunky, I start eating well. So it's like the TV aspect of it, like 5 pounds on TV is a lot of weight. It is a lot of weight. So I struggled with that. So I realized that TV wasn't something that I wanted to do every day. It's something that I wanted to do like on a part-time basis. So it's about learning yourself and like what you're comfortable doing. Maybe one day I might grow into being on every day, but I realized that the TV thing needs to be kind of like, okay, today's TV day. Let me put my face on and put my girdle on or whatever, my Spanx, and suck it all in and put the TV, attire on. Like I have a whole closet of TV attire, So it's like, let me get the hair straightener and straighten my hair, curl my hair or whatever. So I realized I struggle. I wouldn't be able to do it every day. So then I'm like, okay, but what else can I do every day? And I felt like naturally just sports was like such an easy thing for me to transition in naturally. Not easy because getting a sports job is hard, but in terms of my skills, right? I already was comfortable talking on the radio. I already have, a sports IQ and I have opinions and things. But it's like when I started trying to transition, everybody's like, well, you're the music girl. And I'm like, I played sports my whole life. What are you talking about? And it's like, and I talk about sports. Like I used to do a sports update hourly when I was on Power 99. What are you talking about? So
it's interesting they labeled you.
Right. So it's like, okay, cool. I see where you're coming from, because when they're getting applicants, they're literally getting all these like people that are dying, they've been breathing and dying sports their whole life. So I get it. When you look at that resume versus my resume, I understand, right? So then that's why I started my digital sports show, because I'm like, okay, you guys don't think I could do it. Let me show you I can do it. So that's why I did that, So it's like, I forgot what your question was.
Where are you going?
But
Where are you going?
this is where I'm going, like,
yeah,
so
going to the sports.
It's more so like trial and error, and what am I naturally good at? Because that's how I started. What are you good at? What are you passionate about? What comes fairly easy to you? What feels fairly comfortable? And then once I'm in that world, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be very uncomfortable because I don't have the background. I don't look like anyone in that world. I mean, I've been in these rooms, when Kobe Bryant played his last game in Philadelphia, I was in the press room. No one looked like me in that press room. So that's, I'm pretty sure that's a replication of what that industry looks like. So it's like, I don't mind that because I've gone through that already, right? I've done all of that already. So I'm okay with being different and looking different and having a different approach because I've been there already and I'm comfortable with it now. So, but now I have the chops to prove that I belong in the room. So yeah, I mean, that's really where I'm like how I figure out where I'm going. I start getting restless or I start feeling bored. And don't ever confuse feeling bored with being ungrateful or not loving your job.
Right.
I love my job. I'm grateful for my job, but I have this thing where I need to grow. I don't know why.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that makes sense.
It's need to feel challenged. So it's like when I no longer feel challenged, it's like I find what's like exciting to me. So and it's you have to be authentic. And at first I thought it was like TV, but then I got there and I'm like, I still kind of struggle with this a little bit. And this is something I still want to do. It's not something I want to do every day. So this is something that I'm going to want to do part-time. What can I do every day? I could talk about sports every day.
I know what you mean.
Every day, and it's like even this conversation morphed somehow back to Ben Simmons. So it's like
it happened for episode 1.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like when you have that brain, those metaphors, you kind of just keep coming back to them. So it's like, so now it's like, all right, I have these barriers and these roadblocks that I'm continually, having to fight through. So now it's trying to figure out how do I get over the barrier and the roadblock. And it's like sports and music is converging and they're so symbiotic a lot of the times. And it's like, I feel like that I can do that in my career because that's what's happening naturally.
Yeah, you're already doing
worlds.
it.
Well, one thing that Joe Rogan said that it kind of changed my life personally, because I used to listen to his podcast, like even from day one, like before he was like super popular. And he said something that I'll never forget because I even have a pretty unique career. And I do a video game podcast, I do self-improvement podcast, I do this one, I do Flyers podcast, and I work in IT. So it's like none of these things are really related. But one thing he said, he's like, well, if I was in school and I told my teachers I wanted to be a UFC commentator, a stand-up comedian, to have my own podcast, he's like, they would have looked at me and be like, what are you talking about? Like, how are you going to do, like, how are these things connected? And it's really, it's like, not everybody's going to have the vision that you have.
Yeah.
Things connect.
Good point.
Right. So like, I love what you said there. And this is the second time I'm going to bring up Les Brown, but I listen to him so often. My sister knows, but he talks about that, like nurturing your gifts, like your natural gifts, and how important that is to take advantage of what it is you do well, and do it as well as you can. And then he says, and I love this, he goes, give it 100%, do what do as much as you can to get what you want. And if you don't get it, do what's required. And I love that response because it's like, sometimes you think you're giving 100%, but you might not be, it's like, you might have to do what's required to get into that world. And I like what you're saying, right? You're like, well, it makes me uncomfortable, but I'm still going to do it, or I love sports, I love music, and like I need to find a way to make these two work together. And like I think there's a lot to that. I think you probably will, right? Just because
she definitely is going to.
In fact,
she's already
doing it.
You
already are, right? So it's like, it's
the
just
program
the
directors of all the sports radio, they must be like, why did I give this girl my email? I'm like, here's my take on this. Here's my take on that. Here's my recent show. Here's my recent. I spoke to Doris. Here's a clip from my interview. So it's like, and I'm attacking it on multiple levels as well. I mean, it might be sports broadcast, maybe it's not, maybe it's working with the Sixers and then finding a way to like bring together music and sports, which is already
Who
happening.
knows?
So it's like, it's there. I have the brain for it. I just got to see how it works. Like I have the broadcast background and then I have the athlete background, right? So that's why I'm like, okay, well, on air would work because I'm already doing that. It would just be, a legitimate sports station, right?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to attack that, but
I'm curious to see where this ends up going.
well, those guys, so I never forget when I was first at Syracuse, this is what made me go into music. I thought when I was 18 that I wanted to do sports radio back then, right? So and the sports guys are so intense. They've always been so intense, right? I don't know how it is in the real world, but I remember in college, the sports guys were so intense, right? A lot more intense than like the music people, right? So I remember going to like one of my first sports broadcast, and I'm like, oh, I want to do play by play, the hardest thing in freaking sports. So it's like, so I go in, and I think they call like the women's lacrosse team or something. I think they still do it for Syracuse, the school radio station. So I go in and I'm like, oh my God, this is so hard. I can't do play by play. I can't think of 7 different ways to say the same thing in 1 minute. Like their brains are so incredible. And like,
That's so
I was
true.
like,
It's so funny.
I had like such a different respect for play by play people. And like, it was so incredible to me. And I'm like, okay, that's not what I'm going to do because I don't care how witty or smart I am. I cannot find 7 different ways to say he put the ball in the basket within a 3-minute time span. I don't think I know enough words.
Oh my God, that's so
describe
funny.
this in that many ways. Like this is like a hard game of Scrabble. So it's like it was like literally like I can't. That's not it. That's not it. So like I think I've just figured it out throughout my life. Like okay, let me get into this room, and then I'm like okay, that's not it. That's not. So it's like I'm like okay, well I have the broadcast and I have. So maybe I'll do on air, and then if I get there, I might be like, oh, this is it. This is easy. This is not different than doing a music broadcast. It's the same, or I could be like, oh no, this ain't it. I don't think that'll be it though, because I'm like, I think doing my digital sports show has really shown me that is the lane that I should be going in.
Interesting.
It really just like solidified it for me. And I'm on the show. I don't know, how many people are here from Philly, probably not, it's a worldwide podcast, but I purposely surrounded myself on my digital show, to your point about fitting the resume. I purposely surrounded myself with real sports guys. Like my one co-host, his name is Sean Bell, and he was a sportscaster for Fox 29. So he's a legitimate like sportscaster, right? And then my other friend Terrell, he covers the Hawks in Atlanta. So, and he's more like a sports blogger. So I literally surrounded myself with the like 2 bona fide like sports guys to see how I match up with them. And then like doing the show, I'm like, I can go with them. Like I legitimate have points and I can go toe to toe with these guys. So that really gave me the confidence to be like, I can do that, but I see it. Everyone else doesn't see it yet. So it's like, that's why I send the emails like, here's my take about Thibault starting in place of Danny Green or whatever, like, I don't even know if they're watching it, but I'm sending it. And then it's like, so I'm waiting, I'm trying to get that done. And then I'm also like figuring out other angles that, that might work for me. So when you talk about transitions in your career, it's like, do what it comes natural. I've always done that. And I have pushed myself to be in uncomfortable spaces. But when I'm in those spaces, I really am like, why am I uncomfortable? And is this something that I can work on? Or is do I just have to accept that maybe I do this part-time? So it's like, I worked on the physical part of it, and it's like, I don't think I can live my life like this. I want to gain 10 pounds and not have to worry about how it looks on TV. Like, I just want to have that luxury. So I realized, okay, I can do this, but it's not something that I want to do 5 days a week yet. Maybe I'll grow into that, but I'll do that sporadically. when different opportunities present themselves. But this other thing is something that I can do all the time, that I feel comfortable doing, that I'm already doing. Now I just need the opportunity to do it for a company.
Yeah. Well said.
Sorry.
That's awesome.
No.
You guys are like so deflated after that.
No,
No, no. Oh my God, are you kidding me? I feel empowered. I was just actually thinking there's a quote called some people follow their dreams and other people hunt them down and beat them mercilessly into submission.
I'm beating, girl. They
Yeah.
I
hate
know
me.
you are. You're already
Chuck,
doing it. You're like, here's my take.
Chuck,
Here's my take.
Spike. Chuck is probably like, if these are program directors at sports stations. Chuck is probably like, if this girl emails me one more time,
She's getting a job.
Right.
I was gonna say they probably love it. You know, what I mean, the reality
do.
is that persistent pays. Like everybody knows that.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
100%.
I
Because
don't
they're-
know. I'm not
creating
getting answers. So it's like, I
You
wonder
get
what
it.
goes through their head.
You just got to keep at it because, it's kind of like that labeling thing too. It's like, when people start labeling you and associating you with sports the way you want them to, that's when those lanes open. Because even now in your career, like you've established your name, right? So people know who you are. They seek after you without you having to rub elbows per se, right? Like people might know about you, they find you. So it's kind of that same idea. It's just, creating that label.
Well, I just don't understand why the world still wants to do this, like wants to compartmentalize everything. Like,
Just how our brains
we're not
work.
like
was gonna
that as
say.
people. And I don't understand that. Like, why can't I work at a sports station and a music station?
You can.
You can.
Right.
totally
But that's the thing. In today's world, it's like, well, your resume doesn't have all the experience. And it's like, okay, I get that. I get it. You have to make sure that the person is ready for the job. But I don't understand why people think that way. Like, we're not like that as people. We don't just talk about one thing. Like, why would I just talk about music?
Well, I think it's easier. Like I talk to my sister about this all the time. Like a lot of emotion is based in like control, right? So if they see somebody who's kind of breaking the mold, it like literally causes people's emotions to spike because they're like, wait, like this isn't what I expected, right? Like if for some reason people do that, we do that, right? We want everything to be incredibly predictable. That's why people move to the suburbs, right? Because they don't like somebody's walking in front of my house or on my lawn, or like somebody was setting off fireworks in front of my house, like while we're recording. It's like little things like that. Like the unpredictable makes people uncomfortable. So, right. So what you're doing is, I mean, in some way make people uncomfortable, but that's where growth happens. Like you were saying. So it's like, it just kind of comes with the territory, I feel like, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, Robin Roberts did it. Like Robin Roberts started in the sports world and now she's on the Today Show, like, and she doesn't talk about sports at all on the show. Like, like it's Robin Roberts. So it's like, I just think it's incredibly limiting for people to think that you can only do one thing,
I agree.
And I would love in the perfect world to be able to, keep my music job. And that only takes up a certain amount of hours in a day. And then maybe early in the day, I do my sports job, and then maybe one day on the weekend, I'll do my TV job where I can put it all together, so we'll see. I'm working towards it. So someone has to say yes in order for me to be able to do it.
They will. You're branding yourself. And that's basically what it is.
Yeah. So if it's not sports broadcast, it's definitely going to be like a sports organization. But I just think we're in a place where sports and music are so intertwined that I don't understand like why it's so difficult. Like I can easily talk to a rapper and ask him a sports question, like, hello, like, and then I can use that content for that. So it's because we're well-balanced people. We don't just, do one thing. And you want to talk about Allen Iverson, right? I thought about Allen Iverson because I feel like he was very instrumental in like not only being about the game and his, the sport, but also bringing in a lifestyle aspect of it, and like, that's what a lot of these guys do. I mean, even look at Malcolm Jenkins. and how it wasn't just football for him. You know, he was very political and he was very outspoken. And, you know, everything is not just one thing. You know, people have different ideas and different. I mean, Malcolm Jenkins was on CNN. Like, hello, he played football. Like, it's incredibly limiting to say you can only do this. You know,
Right.
it's like, we have multiple ideas and multiple conversations and multiple interests. So I'm all for people transitioning as long as they're authentic about it, you know, and not like, oh, I'm just doing this for fun, but they really commit to it and, you know, really show that this is something that they're passionate about.
Yeah.
So to kind of wrap this up, I want to ask you, if you could, like, I guess, give your younger self advice now, knowing all the things that you know and all the things that you've grown to like learn about yourself or anything, right? What would that be?
You know what's crazy? People always say this, and I always struggled with it. And I've heard this when I was in school, and I still struggled with it. And it's like, tell people what you want. And I know it's very, very simple, you know,
advice.
but
it is great advice.
I've struggled with it, you know. I think I'm getting better at it now, but I have struggled with it. You know, I distinctly remember speaking to someone and saying, oh, you know, I would like to do this if you have the availability. And the person was like, why didn't you say anything sooner? And I'm like, well, I thought it was obvious. You know, like, hello. But it's like, I literally have heard that when I was a kid. So it wasn't like it wasn't information I didn't have. I just didn't do it. And like, the way that I've gotten my jobs have been very organic and very natural. You know, like the one story I told you about Sirius XM, that happened time and time again. You know, it wasn't like I applied for the job and, you know, came in for the interview. It was like, I've built a relationship organically and then got the job later on. So it's like, that only works so much though. You know, like, you have to be able to get a job a different way. So I have struggled because that's always been my path. Like, I built a relationship and then over time, and then it was like, oh, I have this job. I think you're perfect for it. I've had to learn to get a job that I didn't, you know, that I couldn't get that way. So tell people what you want. Strangers, you know, I've always waited. I just never wanted to be that girl that met somebody and was like, give me a job. You know, like, I never wanted to be that person. I never wanted to make anyone feel like I'm trying to build a relationship with them because I need something from them. So I think there's that as well. Just like the human aspect of, you know, I don't want you to feel like I'm just, you know, forming a relationship with you because there's an interest. Cause I don't ever want to feel that way. And I never want to make someone else feel that way.
Yeah.
So the jobs that I have had have been very organic, and I've had relationships with my superiors. But now, as I'm getting into this new space, I don't always have those relationships. So I really have had to create those relationships, right? And then just really be vocal about what I want, even if it's a stranger. And I struggle with that because in general, I just struggle asking people for stuff. And that's not like a job thing. That's like a personal thing, you know, like, I'm always like, okay, I'll do it. Whatever, I'll do it. You don't have to do it. I'll do it. Like, if you don't want to do it, I'll do it, you know? So it's like, I've always bring like a worker bee. So I don't have a problem, like, just getting the job done and doing it if someone else is not doing it. So it's hard for me to ask for things because I'm such a doer. And I've had to learn, like, ask people, tell people what you want, you know, tell people I want a sports job. Tell them. And, you know, you never know what can happen from that.
You never know. You're so right.
Squeaky.
But I have struggled with it. and it's something simple. It wasn't even like it wasn't even like I wasn't given the information. It was just,
it sounds simple, but it's
I
a little
literally
deeper.
was like, but someone literally said, why haven't you said anything earlier? And I was like, because I thought it was obvious. Like, what? Why didn't I? I just felt stupid. So it's like, ever since then, it's like, okay, let me tell people what I want. Let me tell them, even if it makes me feel uncomfortable telling them.
I love that so much. I love that. Oh my God, what a great way to end that. I didn't even expect that good of a response for that ending piece. That was awesome. Mina, I miss you. I'm so happy. This is awesome. And we have to get together soon.
I mean, I'm outside. You, as they say,
Okay.
I'm outside. We outside. I'm out here.
All right. I'll ping you.
Listen,
Something.
I'm waxed and vaxxed and ready to go.
Yes. All right, awesome. Mina, thank you so much for doing this. This is awesome. Yariv, obviously, thank you to you. Obviously, I don't need to tell you. I assume that you already know. Just kind of bouncing off of the tell people. But yeah, so for the viewers, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And I don't know, sometimes it's not available.
Subscribe.
Thumbs up.
Yeah, we gotta get used to saying that. Like, subscribe, comment, the whole thing.
Do the thing, whatever thing you're listening to it on. I don't know. Whatever. Do the thing. Do something. Make some kind of action decision if you like it. Send it to a friend.
Right.
There you go.
Hit the tweet button.
Yeah, there you
Hit the tweet or fleet or that.
Tweet it. Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
Mina was just going off. She's like, you gotta fleet it. You gotta fleet it. I was just like, it sounds like it's recited.
It's a lot.
Yeah. All right, but thank you so much, and we will see you soon.
Thank you guys for having me. Have a great day.
You too.